welcome back to the Sensitivity Doctors, everyone. We have such a great episode with Dr. Theresa DeLorenzo today, and we're talking about sugar in the lead up to the holidays. And Dr. Kelley is sharing some really interesting information about her recent experiences with sugar.
Yeah, I definitely felt like this was an episode that was a little self-exposing, but in hopes of helping other people, because it can be really difficult if you're someone who struggles with sugar to get through the holidays, especially as a highly sensitive person, because we really are more sensitive to hunger cues. And so Dr. DeLorenzo, who is a friend of the podcast, has been here before. I love that she came back to help all of us HSPs out with sugar addiction. She's a registered dietitian, podcaster, presenter, so she really is passionate about this topic. And she shared a little special event that she has coming up as well. We didn't get to talk about it during it, but she has a winter bliss and mindfulness yoga and charcuterie retreat in Beddington, Vermont. So at the end of the episode or in our show notes, you can find her info if you want to join her. It sounds fun. I want to join her. But yeah, I hope everyone really enjoys this episode and finds something that will help them get through the holidays as well.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I know you will be able to use this for Thanksgiving and Christmas.
So welcome back, Theresa. You are a friend of the podcast. You've been on here before.
Yeah.
And super excited to have you come back. I actually had a personal experience that led me to want to ask you all these delicious questions today.
Okay.
And something I really appreciated, I know we both did last time, was your kind of like empowered version of nutrition. And it wasn't, all these stringent rules that can cause a lot of anxiety. And so I was so curious to have you come back because I recently decided to try to cut sweets. And while that might sound like that's not a big deal, to me,
it is.
It is. To me, as a sugar addict, I will self-proclaim that, it is quite a big deal. And so it's been interesting too, since I wanted to do this episode with you, things have shifted too, so we can chat about that. So first, if you could just maybe re-engage with everyone, let them know who you are again, and then we can just launch right in. Like, how does someone kick a sugar addiction? Do you call it addiction? I can't wait to hear what you think.
Okay. So I'm Dr. Theresa DeLorenzo. I have a private practice called Nutrition for Optimal Performance. I work with athletes and people with body image disorders, and a lot of them are both. And a lot of them have this sugar problem, Dr. Kelley, that you mentioned. So I don't call it an addiction. What it boils down to is two things primarily. Well, maybe three. One of them is you're not eating enough. And so your body's like, oh my God, give me the energy now. And that's the quickest way to get it, is through something that's sugar, right? Sugar only. Because it's going to go into your bloodstream and you're like, okay, dopamine release, I'm happy, I feel better now. So a lot of times I'll have clients who are like, I'm good, quote unquote, good all day. The maybe eggs and avocado, no toast, and the salad with no carbs. And then dinner time comes and they're like, oh my God, eat all the food. And then after dinner, it's the Twizzlers, the jelly beans, all the things, because their body's like, where were the carbs that you didn't give me all day?
Have you been hiding in my pantry?
But this is what I wanted to ask,
but
right?
this is so common. It's so common. Another reason it happens is people are eating, we call in the nutrition world sometimes naked carbs. So you'll eat like pretzels or you'll eat jelly beans or Twizzlers or chips without a protein. So that satiation, that fullness factor doesn't happen. And it's just like, your body's like, wait, where's the rest? Where's the balance in this meal or snack? Or a pasta for dinner, right? And then it's like, wait, you might get full and then you're hungry really quickly because there was not enough fiber, there was not enough protein, there was not enough fat. So sometimes that's what keeps us just wanting more and more and more of that. So sugar, causes a dopamine release. And so we feel good, but it's just not enough to satiate us.
But Amelia, So let me just ask before we
Yeah.
continue, right? I'm not big on sugar. Like we're the people that buy the candy bar and then it goes off in 2 weeks or a month and we have to throw it away. So when you're saying you had like a sugar addiction, like were you eating candy every day or did you not realize you were eating it every day? Like, can you just give us like a, why are you asking the question? I just want to
Hmm.
understand.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
yeah. What is the sugar addiction?
sure.
Break it down.
I will break it down. Well, sometimes I wonder if I had not been raised in the era of apple juice in the bottle, like, would I
Oh.
have a different, right? Like, would epigenetics have expressed in a different way? But
Oh,
here's an
was
interesting thing. I will throw this out there. I sometimes talk about generational trauma, and epigenetics are wild, like the way that trauma can express in the body, even generations later. And so my maternal family was starved out of the Ukraine by the
Mm.
not the most recent, but like other
yeah.
fabulous, well, by Stalin essentially. And so my genetics have, I believe, this predisposed condition to fear hunger,
Yep.
like to get
Definitely.
really, really panicked and uncomfortable in hunger. Whereas I see my husband, who just genetically is so different, like his family has been here for ages, hundreds of years. They don't have history of, starvation. And if he gets hungry, it's like, no big deal
No
to
big
him.
deal.
So when you were saying not eating enough and kind of satiating that with sugar, that really resonated. But to your specific question, Jeanne, you were asking about like, how do I know?
Mm.
It sounds like all the things that other addicts say, where I'll say, okay, well, I'm going to like cut sugar after the holidays and not do it anymore. And then so I'll go a day or two and I don't have any sugar. And then like I notice it everywhere. I'm like, it's in
Oh.
the store, it's in my, my kids' party bags, it's here, it's there. And so it's like this hyperfixation on something. That's
Mhm.
part of what makes me feel like
Yes.
it's an addiction. The other is like lack of control. Like you mentioned, well, chocolate bars I could deal with, but like put a pack of Oreos in my closet, danger zone. So there's certain foods that can feel very like they're literally calling my name from so there's this pull towards it if it's present. And so similar to an addict, I have to make sure that stuff is not in my house. What I realized, it's funny, I had gotten, have you ever heard of, and actually, Theresa, I'm very curious your perspective on smart sweets. Do you know what those are?
Mm.
Mm-mm.
They're like these like fake candies that are not sugary, but they have like stevia or something. And
Okay.
oh, look at her. She's getting ready
There's
to
so
like
many
jump.
things to say.
Yeah, yeah. And so what had happened was I was like, okay, I'm going to stay away from sweets, but I'm just going to have these things.
hmm
And what was happening is even though they're technically low sugar, they were like making me want more sugar.
Yep.
And so, it would be like we go out with my kids and they get ice cream and I'm like, well, socially this just makes sense to get a scoop. Like that kind of stuff. And it
Yeah.
just such a slippery slope. And once we get to it, the 2 weeks I went totally cold turkey. I've now since shifted where I'm not fully cold turkey now. I'm able to
Good.
kind of right, but I almost needed to go cold turkey for a couple
Okay.
weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm so curious, you were like physically getting excited when I
I was.
said
Okay. So many things.
smart
So
sweets.
the first thing is
Right.
you and many people, not just you,
Hmm.
but a lot of people put certain foods, a lot of
Hmm.
times it's a sugary food or like cheese or something on a pedestal, right? They covet it and it's like, I have
Mm.
it. And then in your mind, it's this, I shouldn't do this. And we're humans, so we want to do the things that we shouldn't do. Right.
Mm.
And so when you're doing it, you're like, okay, I'll just eat it all and then I won't have it again. Like you said, the New Year's thing, I won't have it again for like months. Okay,
Right.
it's not realistic. So my approach is usually to tell people like, let's unpack the good food box, the bad food box, all foods are food. And when you are allowed to have it, you're like, oh, I'm good. I can have a little bit more tomorrow and it's not as big of a deal.
Hmm.
So the other thing that you said about epigenetics, yes, like the things your gene expression is a result of many years back, right? And
Hmm.
that does affect how you crave food and all of that. The fake sugar thing. So a lot of sugar alternatives, aspartame, stevia, not as much stevia, but a lot of sugar alternatives are so molecularly similar to sugar that our body is fooled to think that they're sugar,
Mm.
and you actually secrete insulin. So now
Oh.
that insulin is like, wait, where's the sugar? It's not molecularly similar enough to bind to it. It's
Mm-hmm.
just similar enough to cause the insulin release. And then the insulin is like, wait, looking for sugar, and that's what causes you to actually crave it. So if you're craving
Oh.
it, take it off the pedestal, know it's allowed, eat the real thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then that sugar craving is satisfied because you're not coveting it. You take it off the pedestal, it's okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which lends me to the third, which kind of is epigenetic tied also, is our gut microbiome. Is everyone's gut microbiome is different, and some of that is fed by our genes, our history, our ancestors. So there's different bacteria in our gut, and there's as many makeups as there are people. And some of those bacteria in our gut are good and healthy and help us, and some of them are bad and cause inflammation. And when we have inflammation in our gut, the gut becomes porous, so things translocate out and we get immune reactions. Allergies develop. Our villi flatten. We don't digest food as well. And then there's the
What's
good bacteria.
villi? Can you clarify that for
Yeah,
listeners, what
so
villi are?
villi are like these are the little finger-like things in your intestines that secrete the enzymes that help us to digest food, like lactase and all
Mm-hmm.
the digestive enzymes that help us to break down the food that we're eating. So when those are flattened, we're malabsorbing, we're not digesting the food optimally. The good bacteria do the opposite. They keep our gut nice and intact, and they keep inflammation down, and they keep our gut brain connection via the vagus nerve nice and healthy, so that serotonin that's produced in our gut can actually get to our brain. The problem is, if our gut negative bacteria is prevailing over the positive bacteria, they survive on sugar, high fat foods. So when they're surviving on that, they're causing you to crave those things to keep
Mm-hmm.
themselves alive.
Oh,
And
wow.
then so then you want more of it, which only keeps them prevailing over the positive bacteria.
Mm.
So it's like a negative feedback loop, right? You're
Mm.
just perpetuating the system, and then that vagus nerve connection is causing you to not get the serotonin from your gut to your brain, and now you feel sad, and then you want more sugar, and then it's like a vicious cycle.
Right.
Um,
So when I was saying the cold turkey piece, I'm curious, while sugar is not problematic for everyone,
mhm.
if someone does want to kind of kick this draw, or I call it an addiction,
Yeah.
um, I'm curious what you think the best methods are. It sounds like on your end, you would rather folks just be mindful and maybe cut back.
I like
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, whereas I felt like I had to have a handful of weeks free of it in order to be
Yeah.
clear enough and have enough clarity to make better decisions about it.
That could work for some people. I think what
Mhm.
can happen is it backfires, and then when you reintroduce it, you overindulge.
Mhm.
So I think it depends on the person, the personality, and things like that. What I like to tell people to do is not focus on taking things out of their diet, because then it's like, oh my God, I can't have this, so I want it. And
Mhm.
instead, add things in, like, okay, if it's because you're not getting enough carbs, let's add in some whole grains, let's add in fiber rich foods, thinking about the things that you need more of. And then inherently you will crave less sugar because your body's getting the carbs that could have been causing the sugar cravings, or the fiber from those good carbs that are going to help to feed the good bacteria if that's the issue. So either way, it's going to help to mitigate the issue regardless of what it is, which it could be a combination of things.
Mhm.
So yeah, try to tell people to focus on, let's add beans, let's add protein to every meal and snack. And then inherently they're like, oh, wow, I don't have the cravings that I used to. And they start to subside.
Right. So for someone who like I was saying, is trying to kick it and wants to go cold turkey, because for me, I really needed that clarity, like I was mentioning. Um, I'm curious what kind of side effects are common, because I will tell you the reason I was like, Theresa, come back and talk to us, is like I said, kicked it cold turkey. I didn't sleep for 4 days. I had the worst insomnia and restless leg feelings in the evening. And okay,
Wow.
that's a little dramatic. I probably slept about 1 hour a night or something, very disjointed. My dopamine just plummeted. And I really was not eating that much before. I wasn't indulging in a carton of ice cream a night or anything, but it was just enough that when I nixed it.
Whoa.
Yeah. So is that common? How do people know if they're going through withdrawals? How do you deal with it?
Honestly, that's not common to my knowledge.
I'm just weird.
And maybe because the clients that I work with, I'm not having them take it out completely, right? So
Right,
I'm not
right.
hearing that.
Hmm.
Wow, that's intense. That sounds like, like if someone were to stop drinking all of a sudden, right? Their
Hmm.
body's used to it, and now it's been ripped away. And I almost fear, so I guess not to knock what you did. I mean, I commend you. You went cold turkey and you feel better, but when we don't get enough sleep, that can almost make the problem worse because that breaks down the vagus nerve, causes dysbiosis, and allows the negative bacteria. So I almost wonder if I mean, you got through it, but
Hmm.
man, that sounds crazy and intense. And I don't know how many people would have persisted and gotten through that?
Yeah.
I would have been like, screw this. My body's telling me
Well,
you need it.
it was a similar experience when years ago I realized how sensitive I was to caffeine. And when
Hmm.
I went from even just shifting from coffee to tea, I had similar side effects like
Yeah.
headache and moodiness and not sleeping well and things like that. So I knew I would get through it.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
this brings up the
Highly
point about
sensitive people.
sensitivity,
Yeah.
however.
Right.
Okay. And this is really what we're here for, is how is this unique to highly sensitive people with more active nervous systems? Because I do believe, being a very high HSP myself, that
Mhm.
might have played a role.
And I
I'm
think we
curious your
learned
thoughts.
during our last podcast that you did with me that I also am. And I was a
Mhm.
little like, oh, I didn't realize, but my mom does call me sensitive all the time. So I guess it prevails in many ways. Yes, I think highly sensitive people are going to notice things, symptoms, when you take something away, we're going to notice it more. And that goes along with, not to keep bringing it back to this, but it is such a huge factor, is people with IBS feel that bloating, that gut sensitivity much more than people who aren't highly sensitive, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think highly sensitive people are going to probably be more likely to have a sugar addiction because they notice the drops, the shifts in the hormones even more than someone who doesn't, right? Who isn't
Mhm.
highly sensitive. And so they're going to need that feedback. And then when
Mhm.
it's gone, they're going to notice those symptoms. And I think, someone who is highly sensitive is probably going to have an easier time kicking that habit if they do it in a less dramatic way, and
Mhm.
you're turbo and you got through it, but maybe like adding the protein,
Mhm.
adding the things and doing it in a more natural way, that they're not going to get those dramatic symptoms.
Right. And I mean, I'm not saying I gave up like fruit. Like I
Okay,
wasn't
good. Woo!
so, yeah, no, I wasn't like
And that has
being
fiber.
right, exactly. And so it's interesting because you said something about HSPs and their sensitivity to the drops in blood sugar. And if you look up I don't know if you recall the HSP self-assessment that Dr.
Yes.
Elaine Aron shares,
Yeah.
literally one of the determining factors for HSPs is that you're more sensitive to hunger cues.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Hmm.
I'm hungry every 2 hours.
I'm
Yeah, me
curious on
too.
your end, Jeanne, because you and I are both highly sensitive, but I feel like the way you're highly sensitive kind of expresses differently in you. And I think you have a different relationship with sugar than I do. I'm curious what your take is as an HSP as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm listening to you here to you talking about the sugar, and it was interesting to me when you were saying rather put things in than take it out, because for me, my big thing is salt rather than sugar. But I also have IBS related to my panic disorder. And I went through the whole FODMAP elimination diet. And one of my, like, the biggest challenge I had was with lactose. And it felt like my life ended because I'm the glass of milk girl before bed. Cheese is
Oh,
my
Oh.
life.
cheese is
Yogurt
my
is my
life. Yeah.
existence.
Yes.
So,
My bones would be crumbled by now if I didn't eat cheese.
yeah, but and for me, it's like my system is so sensitive to it. It makes me so ill when I eat it, but I don't even care because I love it so much. So I have the worst time taking it out of my diet, and I know it makes me sick. And it's really like you're saying, it's almost before you eat it, you can feel what it's going to do to your insides and how you are going to feel, but you can't stop thinking about it. You want it so badly.
Yeah,
Oh,
because
so
you
you're a
just,
cheese addict then.
I'm with you, Jeanne. Yeah, cheese is my life. When I was a kid, it was chocolate. Um, and Dr. Kelley, you said something about the apple juice, which triggered me to remember I was an orange juice, I would say, addict when I was a kid. Like I
Wow.
didn't like milk. I hated milk, still do. So I have soy milk in my fridge, but we use it for whatever. But orange juice was all day long. And so did that cause my gut to just flip over and be like negative bacteria? And now I have IBS, and running makes it worse because you're just ripping up your GI tract. But I drank orange juice all day long. And I just mentioned I love chocolate as a kid because I was highly anxious, and chocolate has magnesium. And so but I drank orange juice and chocolate together. So that's weird. Can't explain that one. But yeah, so the apple juice thing, yeah, so that goes back to the concept of what you are raised on and what your ancestors did really does feed
Yeah.
your makeup, your habits, your, fears, your microbiome, all the things, right? It just perpetuates.
I once heard a weird thing about chocolate that it is, at least milk chocolate especially, the most similar structurally as far as like the balance of fat and sugar and all of that to breast milk. I know, I love your faces.
How?
Is that true?
Something like the balance of the amount of sugar, the amount of fat, the amount of protein, maybe. I don't know. It
I
could be
should know this.
totally
I was a
wrong.
NICU dietitian. Why don't I know this? And I was a chocolate addict as a kid. What?
I don't know. And this, I don't even remember where I read this. So I could be just making this up, but I'm
We
pretty
need to
sure I
fact
read
check it
this.
because then I'm
I'm
going out and
gonna
getting
look
Lisa.
into this.
Yeah, look it up.
And
Look
I
it up.
wasn't
And
breastfed. My mom said I wasn't good at it, so I wasn't breastfed. And then I was,
well, I mean, if you think of formula, it's
yeah.
similar. But because of that, they're saying it's one of the reasons why our brain dumps so much dopamine out when we eat it.
What?
Yes.
I'm mind blown. I'm mind blown.
Yes. So we will fact check that, folks. And
We
if it is
will.
Yeah.
wrong, I will put it in the show notes that it's wrong. But I'm pretty sure I
Sounds
remember reading it because it
plausible. It
stayed with
sounds
me.
plausible. Yeah. Okay.
So, so that being said, if I'm getting the sense that what you're saying is that one of the ways of dealing with sugar withdrawals is, well, first of all, not to do it the way I did it.
I'm not knocking it, but that just wouldn't be what I would recommend because I'm a very not like I was a restrictive eater as a teen, and it prevailed into my 20s, and I just don't like to go because it can be, depending on your personality, a very vicious, dangerous, perilous like trajectory if someone has that,
Right.
right? That starts, and then what comes next, and
Right.
so that's just as a dietitian my thoughts on that.
Well, and I will say I had it in my mind that it was a temporary
Right. Yeah.
event. My mindset was I was going to go at least 2 to 3 weeks
Okay.
because that's about how long. If you've ever read Dopamine Nation, such a good book, where that psychiatrist talks about kind of how long it takes for some of your
Yeah.
natural dopamine to start pumping again after giving up something that produces it for you.
Okay.
And then my mindset after, what I've noticed about at least my body is that if I have a treat one day, whether it be like a birthday or I just decide to, if I do it that one day and I don't follow it up the next day, it's kind of like an occasional thing. I don't feel that same
Yeah.
intense drive.
Okay.
And so I think what it comes down to too for highly sensitives is that if you pay attention to all those cues, I would hope each person kind of has their own best way to
Of
kick
course.
a
Definitely.
habit.
Agree. Yeah. Yeah. You know what
So,
works for you, right? Like I know from restrictively eating when I was a kid, like when I reintroduce things like chips, because I'm like Jeanne and salt is, yeah. It was over. Like it was,
Yeah,
watch
and I'm
out.
not really big into salt. Why is that?
I
That I
wondered
feel
that
like
too
people
if
fall in one
we
camp or the other.
yeah.
Yes, that tends to be, and I think, I don't know, we both have IBS. I'm also a runner, and we probably lose a lot of salt as IBS people. So our body craves the
I
things
drink 5
we
liters
eat.
of water a day,
And
so
so your
that may
body's
be
like,
why.
balance this out. You need to get the electrolytes, or else that's dangerous to drink that much water without the
Oh.
salt. And so that could be why you're craving it, which I'm all about. What you crave is for a reason, right? Yeah.
Do you
Whether that
put
reason
elect?
So,
is,
so Amelia, when did you start feeling better? When did you start feeling like, okay, I feel a little better, I'm evening out. I think I can start putting it back a little bit.
Well, I started to feel better a week into it. I didn't put it back, and I haven't really, quote, put it back. I've
Okay.
just, I think last weekend we took the kiddos to a pumpkin farm, and I made like a very conscious decision. I am going to have this pumpkin flavored ice cream because it looks
oh,
delicious.
yum. That is.
And because I hadn't been having it, I had about half the cup, and I was like, "Meh, I'm good." And I
Did
think
you get a
that might
rush from it?
a rush. It felt too sweet.
Ah,
Like
okay.
it
Oh,
definitely
wow.
felt too sweet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So I think that was for me too why removing it. I feel like it almost allows my body to get back to baseline
Yeah. Yeah.
in a way. Um, so with that being said, this episode is going to be coming out right at the beginning of when the holiday season is starting.
Yeah.
And there's just sugar galore. I mean, to the
Right.
point where I get annoyed with the amount of times my elementary age child is fed sugar at school.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the experience where you are, Jeanne, but my question is, how would someone like me, or someone maybe who's somewhat like me, deal with that during all the holidays coming up? And I notice even sometimes when you're the person who says no to the cake, people give you a look.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
My dad
Yeah.
hates sweets.
I love
Always
both of your
hates
reactions.
sweets. And like he'll always say no, and people look at him like, why? And he's like, I literally don't. I can't. I hate it. And it's like, you're weird. But I partially think that is people want it and they don't want to feel like they're doing something wrong when other people aren't doing it. So they want everyone to be doing it so it's normalized, so it's okay, so they're not being bad maybe sometimes. I don't know. That could,
I could see that
but
from
they're
an
like, how
emotional
come you can
standpoint.
resist this and I can't kind of thing, you know?
Right.
But yeah, so to sort of answer your question, like if there's going to be a gathering where I know there's going to be like cookies and candy, and again, I'm allowed to have some in my mind, but I don't want to just have that. So I'll bring like a vegetable platter to balance it all out and get, some other things in there so that there's the fiber there. There might be like a hummus dip to give you the other nutrients to balance it out so that you're not going to just overindulge in the sugar. You're going to have other things to kind of alter the flavor platform and, allow you to feel more full and not just dive down that sugar rabbit hole, you know?
Right. Yeah, I once heard that the first bite you eat makes a big impact on what you crave. So if you start with things like fiber, fat,
Yeah.
protein, you will likely even just want less of the sugar, so to
Exactly.
speak.
Exactly. Yeah.
But maybe
Just
not
start with
restrict it.
the carrots and the hummus and the cucumbers and the ranch, and then maybe dabble in the sugar if you still want it. But knowing that, you're balancing it out should help you feel more able to stop. And I think another thing too, I tell clients this, like if you go to an event and it's just like this spread, that can be so overwhelming. And then I think some of them either dive in and eat too much, and some of them just are afraid to eat anything at all. So like make a plate, a balanced plate, so that you're not just picking and not knowing how much you're having. Make a plate that's got
Oh,
some of
that's a good
the,
idea.
the fruits, the vegetables, the sugar, and then like mindfully pause and be like,
Yeah.
am I good? Do I need more? Or what? But then it's not just this is my plate, is the whole charcuterie board in front of me. It's like, this is my plate. And then give it a second and be like, am I good? And if
Oh
you
my
are, then
gosh.
stop.
What you're saying is like totally, I don't want to say triggering, but making me think of a highly sensitive person issue.
Yeah.
As an HSP, I don't know if you feel this way, Jeanne, or even Theresa. When I'm in a social setting, I have like a really invigorating, stimulating social setting. Like my daughter's birthday is coming up, and so we're going to be throwing a big party for it. I am not hungry during it.
You're overstimulated.
Right. I'm so
Yeah.
overstimulated. So I kind of do a little bit more of just, okay, well, I should eat something. So I'll
Mm,
graze a little. And
yeah.
then I don't even know if I'm full, if I'm hungry. I'm like so disconnected from my gut when I'm being very, very social.
I'm
Okay.
the opposite. I'm the
Really?
opposite of that. Yeah. I think because I am so conscious of my gut and I'm always
Mm,
so worried that I'm going to feel bad. And it's
yeah.
like a social gathering and I don't want to be sick and I don't want my tummy to feel bad. So I'm always so sensitive about, okay, well, should I eat this? Like, should I take the chance? So I'm sensitive the other way around. It's like almost
Mm-hmm.
like I can preempt what is going to make my body
What you
feel bad.
Yeah.
Um, and even with hunger, I'll always stop eating when I'm just still a little bit hungry, and then
Mm-hmm.
stop. I have such a kind of
Fear.
like gut brain connection because I think of my sensitivity to it. I'm so fearful of, being in fun and nice situations, and then I'm gonna have to.
Ruining it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
I would say I'm somewhere in the middle because I work with my clients on mindfulness so much that it's like ingrained, and I'm like, okay, make the plate. How do you feel? It's just like this automatic thing. And I also host, these sip, snack, and stretch classes so much that I'm
Wait, what? What are they?
yeah. Oh, so they're my yoga classes. Once a month I teach with my friend, and the other time a month I do an aerial yoga class. But my signature is we have a charcuterie board first, and we have wine. So
Nice.
it's like this,
Just as
eat.
the yogis intended 5,000 years ago.
Right? My mom's like, you cook for all these classes? I'm like, that's my move. That's my signature. Anyone can teach yoga, right? Yeah, so I just feel like it's so practiced. I'm so in tune, which wasn't always the case, obviously. But yeah, I think it's just something I naturally do because I talk about it so much with clients that I'm like, okay, am I good? Do I need more? Where am I? Yeah. Have a fruit, have a vegetable, have a sweet, have a chip, have a cheese, Yeah.
Gosh, I wonder if that's probably like when I think about the high sensitivity, and it's so interesting how we're all so different and how it
Mhm.
expresses in a social setting.
Definitely.
The type of HSP I am, I'm also a high sensation seeker. And so I'm gravitating, I think, in those social situations, and whether it be a holiday or a party, to the intensity of all the people around.
Okay.
And I'm kind of hyper in tune to, are they having a good time? How's this going? How's this person? Oh, why are they outside? All of that.
Too much to do to eat too.
I remember at my wedding, I didn't eat. I
Really?
ate, like, I made myself eat some of the like delicious white fish that we had because I had made such a big deal about getting it. And then that was it. I didn't even want any other food.
Yeah.
So crazy.
But there's people who undereat during stress and there's people who overeat during the stress, right? Like that's
Yeah.
pretty normal reaction,
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe I think I'm having a good time, but maybe I'm stressed out.
Cortisol is like, whoa, too much. Can't do this all. Yeah. There's just yeah.
Well, I have been just so grateful that you were willing to come back and talk about this. Is there anything you feel like we have not touched on when it comes to successfully doing this, or maybe having self-compassion around it?
I would say, give yourself permission to eat the foods that you love in moderation. And when you covet them and when you think you're not allowed to have them is when you can spiral. But balance them, balance them out and make sure that you're having the fiber, having the protein, but still giving yourself permission to have the things that you love, because life's too short to not eat the food that you love.
Love it. And where can our listeners find out more about you and your awesome charcuterie boards and yoga and offerings?
Stuff. My website is nutrition-4-op.com.
Awesome.
Lots of retreats coming up soon too, guys, so stay tuned.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming back, and hopefully this helped everyone a little bit with your own goals and getting through the holidays. And be well, everyone. Bye.
Bye.